So good morning, everybody. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Thanks for joining the call today. I'm always glad for an opportunity to connect with the folks who use Smartbuild every day. I know some of you have been with us for many years, others are new to the platform. But kind of the way that we operate as a company, everybody plays a role in kind of shaping how, what Smartbuild is becoming, the feedback that you guys give us, the way that you push the software in real world situations. It's always helping to improve the product. Before we jump into this new version, some of the updates that we're going to show you, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize kind of an important transition for our company. I think as many of you know, Keith Dietzen retired at the end of December. He had a really extraordinary run, leading Smartbuild. He's not only the founder of the company, but he's someone who he just helped bring people together, and he guided Smartbuild, from what started out as an idea to now the platform that's used by so many people. So I'm just really grateful for his leadership and his belief that better tools can help improve lives and businesses. So I kind of wanted to just start today by, saying thanks to Keith. I don't know that he's on the call, but I wanted to acknowledge him and all of his efforts. If you haven't met me, my name is Johnny Drozdek. I've stepped in as the president of Smartbuild. We have a really great team, talented people who know this industry. We continue to have plans to advance Smartbuild, take it to new levels with capabilities and features. One thing that I've learned over the years is that there are always more good ideas of things that we can add to the software than we have resources and capacity to add. So we always have to choose, what are the things that we're going to focus on. For 2026, we've made a couple of clear choices. One thing that we're going to focus on in 2026 is performance. We know that as the platform has grown and things have gotten more complex, that speed and responsiveness matter more than ever. So over the coming year, we're going to be taking a close look at things like latency of the system, identifying places where the software can be faster or smoother. At the same time, we will continue to invest in new capabilities and features, many of those coming from conversations that we've had directly with our customers. So I think that today's session should give you a preview where some of those efforts are heading. We'll talk about this version, and but I just kind of wanted to reinforce through the transition, our goal continues to remain the same as it's always been. We want to continue to improve the tool, make this stuff work faster and easier, and hopefully be a good, profitable tool that you can use to continue to build great products and projects. So that's my little spiel here at the beginning. I think with that, I can hand it back to you, Sean.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so we're going to show you the new stuff in the latest version. And so just so you know, we had to update the framework that we use for the website, basically. And so we kind of had to disassemble the entire building and switch out the foundation and then reassemble the building on top of a new foundation, basically. But it should, it allows us to continue to have the site operating. Eventually, they would have just shut down the site completely. So that was important, but it should be more secure. It's a more modern framework, and it should help us building or moving forward. It should be a better foundation for us for a lot of different things. So yeah, the site will be down all this weekend and later this evening, but it should be back up Monday morning with a new foundation. And in the meantime, we've also been doing quite a bit of changes on the software. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to get into the new things that you'll be seeing. The first thing I'm going to do is jump into the framing rules. So there, as usual, there is some setup that needs to be taken care of to take advantage of some of these things. In general, we try to not change things on you. If we add new things, you're going to have to opt into them for the most part. And so that is true of we have some new materials that we'll talk about as we get into a job. But if you do want to take advantage of some of these things, you will have to come in and make some changes to your framing rules in the setup wizard. And if you need help with that, that's what our support is for. So just let us know. But one thing I did want to point out in the framing rules here, as we get into a job, you might have seen mentioned in the release notes that we've changed quite a bit with the attached buildings for porches and lean-tos and any sort of attached buildings. And one of the things that we have done is you can now have a different set of properties and materials and settings for the attached buildings that are different from your main building. And we're going to get into a job, and it'll make more sense as we get into it. But I just wanted to show you before we get in there that the way that you can turn on different settings for the attached buildings is going to be in your framing rules, and it's the show attached column here. This is a new column, and you'll see that there's check boxes. Some of these are unchecked. That means that they're not going to show up in the attached building input, but some of these that you'll see once we get into the job are what are showing up when we're inputting in a porch or any sort of attached building. You'll see that these are the different settings that you can have available for the attached buildings. So I came in and I've checked on some specific things here. And so this is going to open up a lot of options here where you can have separate settings for your attached buildings. And we'll get into these more. I just wanted to kind of make it clear that in order to customize these, you come in here and check on or off these different settings. Not everything is available, but a lot of things are going to be. Again, like when you see this Monday morning out of the box, it should look just like it looks today in terms of the settings. There are a couple things that are going to change on you, but we'll talk about those. But it's going to be the same as what you see right now in terms of the settings you have available in the attached buildings. But you can come in here and you can turn off the ones that we have if you don't need those or don't use those. A lot of those, we kind of just put them in there. Some people might need them, but you may not need them. You can come in here and you can customize all that by turning these off and on. And, you know, of course, by hitting save once you have that set up. And then again, if we do have some new materials that we'll look at in a job and you will have to come in, those will be set to none. But if you want to come in and add products to those, to utilize those, you'll have to come in here and hit edit and add those as available materials. Pretty standard. If you're new or if you need help with that, again, just give us a call on the support line. Okay, so I'm not going to save anything there. I'm going to go back to the home page and I'm going to open up a job that I already started here. And we'll talk quite a bit more about the attached buildings and some of these new materials. And one thing I did want to point out before I jumped in here, but that's okay, is that we have this job notes functionality that on the job list, on that home page, you can put in job notes. And you've probably seen that. One thing that's new for this version is we've added that in the job as well. And so if this is empty, if there's no job notes, it's going to look like this, to where it's not filled in, but you can come in here in the job now. You can read any job notes. And you can also just add notes here in the job. And when I say okay, that will be part of it. Once I save the job, that will show up. So on the job list, notes that you put in there in the job or on the job list will show up. Basically, you can input those in the job or on the job list now, and you can read those in either place. So yeah, new functionality there. I'm going to run through a couple things here on the main building, and we're going to spend the bulk of our time looking at these new attached buildings and the porches. But a couple things I wanted to point out. Some of you may want to use this. This probably applies more to porches, but it's a little bit easier to show here. You can now have gable trusses even if you're using rafters. So you can use a combination of gable trusses with rafters. So I have trusses right now, as you can see, but if I switch over to the rafters, you'll see that it's going to switch my roof framing to rafters, and I have gable trusses. If you want to do this, that actual is just a checkbox here to actually get the gable trusses to stick around. So instead of the end rafters, which we also have, you can turn that on and you can use gables. Maybe more likely on the porches, on porches. So you can use rafters for your porches, though you could have these gable trusses on the ends. And that is a setting you could have specifically for your attached buildings. In this case, I have that on my main building at this point. I'm going to switch this back. So just something to keep in mind, a new feature. Another thing that I'll point out here on this main building is we've added in an additional ledger. So we have the top ledger for porches. Now we also have a lower ledger. So these are going to show up at the top and the bottom here. I do have these turned on. And so anytime you have a porch coming up against a wall, or a mono truss or a porch, you have the ability to have this upper ledger, which we've already had. And now we have a lower ledger, which you can kind of see here. It's this one right here. And that is going to be down here in some of this framing roof ledgers. We've switched things around a little bit here. We had some of this in the rafter framing. We do still have a bond plate, which up here at the top, you can have both a kind of a header, or we're calling it a ledger, and you can also have a bond plate, which you could have. So you can have two pieces up here at the top. The bond plate, the rafter bond plate, is still here underneath the rafter settings, and that's only available with rafters. But with trusses, there's a new section here of roof ledgers, and the roof ledger is going to be the upper. So that's the 2x8 that you see here. And then we've added in this lower roof ledger. I have a 2x10 here. And you can shift that. There's an offset. I have this at 0 at the bottom. It's going to place it flush, I guess, with the bottom chord. And then it's going to place it up at the top here with the peak of that mono truss. And you can shift those if you want. You can use these offset to move these up and down. So new material, if you want to use that again, you'll have to go into the framing rules. It's going to be set up as none. You're not going to see any changes here unless you go in and add in some materials like I did. I went into my framing rules and added those materials, and then came into this job and added that in. Probably keep that set. In the same area, new thing that we've added as well is there's a new group here called porch truss nailers, and the actual material is a vertical nailer material. So I have a 2x4 and 2x6. Again, this is going to come in as none, but that is going to be these parts right here. And those are going to show up if you have this set to a material up against the truss here, in a porch situation like this, where it's meeting against another wall. This porch is up against this wall with these mono trusses. It's going to put in these nailers at the kind of tall vertical here on the inside of these. So new material, that's something you can add in here if you want, and you can put in 1, 2, or 3 plies. And that will stack coming out towards us here. So another new material, new feature, and again, you will have to go and set those up in the framing rules. Another thing Just a little change here. This is not a new material. We've had what we call base rails, and I know some of you have been using these, and you can see those in between here. I have those turned on. I have a material in here for the base rail right here, 2x4, in between the posts. So base rails are always going to show up in between the posts. The thing that we changed here is that we've removed those from overhead doors and sliders. We used to run these all the way through. Now we're just automatically getting rid of those. Hopefully that's not a problem. That's one of those things where this is just going to change on you. If you don't like that, let us know, and we can, we can make some changes to make that an option. We decided to just remove those based on feedback that we heard. If that's a problem, let us know, but just heads up, you're no longer going to be getting the base rail if you're using those at the overhead door slider openings. I think one last change here before we get into the porches, and this one's kind of an advanced feature, but I did want to just point this out. I'm not going to get too deeply into this because we could probably spend an entire webinar on this. And that is getting into a change with the assemblies, post assemblies. And we have a whole nother video on that. We can also set up a support session where we can walk you through how to set up assemblies. I do have an assembly set up for my posts. So this plus here indicates that this is an assembly. And you can see I have a perma column, a 3-ply 2x6 with a perma column. And I do have this perma column showing up here in the 3D model. And this is coming from a post assembly where you can do things like this. You can have a lower post, you can have an upper post. You can set up pretty much anything that you need for this post, from the connection with the roof all the way down to the connection to the earth and everything in between with the assemblies. And when I apply this post assembly, it applies the post. It also applies any other parts that I have associated with that post assembly. So here's a specific permacolumn type product that I'm calling out here that's coming along with it. And then any sort of accessories, and you can get into the foundations like the post base. This is all coming. I have some clips and some hold downs and things that are coming from this one assembly. So these are nice because you can set the post material to an assembly, and then all of this stuff comes along with it. And you can set those up in the setup wizard. And again, we can help you set that up. And the other thing that you can do with these is you can run these through your span tables to where, based on span tables, it can pick specific assemblies. And those assemblies can also have different types of, post base or different things that come in based on the assembly. So the assembly can also set up conditions to where, I use this post base in this condition, and I use this other post base in this other condition. So it's kind of a complicated advanced feature. We can help you get these set up. It probably sounds a little confusing if you're not familiar with them. But for those of you using them, and if you do want to use these, one change that we've done here, and we're going to do some more work on these, is when you use these assemblies, you can set up your foundations as part of the assemblies, and then it just kind of ignores your foundation that you have for the job, and you get the foundation that you have set up specifically for the assembly. But because you can have these conditions, what you can do now is, in this case, I have the main building set up to this 15-inch concrete post cookie, and that's what's showing up here. And you can't change that. If I change this, I have a condition set up that will change this assembly to a 16-inch. And that's not new, but what is new is now you can go into advanced edit, and for like an individual wall, for like this particular wall, we'll say EXT3, I can come in here and go into that same foundation question And for this wall, and you could also do this for the opening for like the jam post, I'm going to change this to the answer to this question to a 16-inch cooking. So this could be any of these different settings that you have here. This is just an example with the post base. And when I change that for just this one wall, it is now going to honor that. Before it wasn't honoring that for advanced edit. So now you can go into individual openings, you can go into individual walls, and you can make changes to these types of questions that are set up as conditions. And now if we go into our job review, oh yeah, no, I'm in the right place here, but I clicked on that. So I'm going to go back here. So we still have our same post. We still have our permacolon lower post, but then here in the post base, now we end up with 3 of these 16-inch cookies or concrete post cookies. So new thing, you can get into there and dig into individual walls through advanced edit, and it will honor those to give you the right things. And that again can also run through your span tables. And we can help you get those set up. That's pretty advanced right now, but those can be really powerful tools. And we're going to continue to do some work on those coming up in the near future. But for now, that's where we're at with those. Okay, now we're going to get into the bulk of the new things here with the porches. There's quite a bit going on here with this release, so I'm running through this pretty quickly. At the end of this, we'll open it up for questions. If you do have questions, we can get into more details, and we'll record this and post this, and also you can use our support line and we can help you set this up. Okay, so with these attached buildings, you're going to see these same buttons show up here, but there are quite a few changes related to this. So if I click on this porch, what you're used to seeing is it's going to pop up the input dialog for the porch, and you can go in and change things. If you read this, it's going to say click a wall to add a new porch. And so the way that you initiate this command now is that you pick the wall that you want to use, or that where you want to place this porch. So if we want to place it over here, it's going to get highlighted. And if I click on that, then we get our input dialog here. So that's going to be a change. That's going to look different, but there's some advantages to this. One, you can see we get a highlight here. So you are going to see quite a bit of what you're actually changing here as you input it. And yeah, I'll get into this gear here in a second. But one thing that is going to change as well is the way that these things are aligned is different. Before, our default, and this isn't going to change in a sense, is left and 8 foot, just like this. But if you pull down this alignment, you can now input this based on from the left side of this wall or from the right side of this wall. And when I do right, you'll notice it says from right 24. It's not going to move the building on us in this case, but it is 24 feet from the right now. You can also center this. Center will put you right in the center. So from center 0, and it's going to go 8 foot out from the center. And you can also do full. And if you click on full, it automatically says 0 and 0 to give you a full length. And what's kind of nice about this, you can do like 1 foot from the left or 1 foot from the right. And that will pull it in 1 foot from the left and 1 foot from the right. Or if you do the 0 and the 0, that will give you that full length. So that is a change. That's something that's going to be different. And like when we looked at those framing rules, there are going to be some different, you can have different properties. Actually, when you open this up on Monday morning, everything's going to be the same outside of you have to click on the wall and this alignment. And some of the going to be the same because these are just specific to attached buildings. So these you'll be used to seeing the height and the roof style and the roof pitch and the overhangs, all these things. But when you click on this advanced, that's when you open this up, and I've already changed these like I showed you in the framing rules. So these are different for me. I've set these up the way that I want them. I have the settings that I want to have available. And so we can start turning on like ceiling here specifically for this attached building. So as we're changing these, this is for this attached building here. It's not the main building. And one really important point, something that is going to be different, is anything that's in this attached building dialog, any of these settings that you're setting here are now going to be controlled with this porch. They're not going to be controlled by the main building. So for example, if you turn on or off has ceiling for this porch, it's going to either have ceiling or not have ceiling on the porch. If you go into your main building settings and turn on ceiling, it's not going to affect this porch at all. So these are, anything that's in here for the porch is independent for the porches. That's going to be a change. But anything you don't have in here is still going to be controlled by the main building. So anything you change on the main building that you do not have in your attached building settings is going to change your porches in attached buildings as well as part of the main building changes. But anything that is available here in this input is going to be independent on the porches themselves. So that's going to be a big change. And we'll start making a couple changes here. So that might make a little bit more sense. So one thing that we can do here is we can run through, we can turn on liner, we can change colors. Maybe I'll put in the slab here. Can change up spacing at this base rail. I probably don't want any base rail here on my porches. We could use rafters. We could change up the heel height. All these things that you can do on a main building, you can do now on these attached buildings. And I'm going to point out while we're here, these are the two new trim parts that we have. And they're kind of specific to porches, but you can use them on main buildings in some cases. So there's a beam wrap to soffit trim. I went in and I added in a material here. I'm going to change that on this porch. And there's a ceiling to wall trim. And we'll look at where those come in. But I'm going to set those as part of this porch. These down at the bottom, you're going to be used to seeing as part of the main, or as part of these attached buildings. We kept these down at the bottom. So these are things that are specific to porches as well that we've always had underneath this advanced. So that's going to be the don't combine wall and cut the wall sheathing, and the open shared wall and include back wall, and sheathing under overframing. So these are some things we've always had. So now in order to get this porch to actually show up in the building, we would hit apply. But before we do that, I'm going to get into some of these configuration settings that we have over here with this gear. And before I click on this gear, there are permissions involved with this. And so not everybody is going to have the ability to do the things we're about to do here underneath this gear. And you won't even see this gear. And it's going to be based on the permissions of being able to edit your framing rules. So depending on your permissions and depending on if you have like a supplier who, if you're a builder underneath a supplier, then you may or may not have the ability to do what we're about to see here. So, and also individual users may not have this ability. So you might have an administrator who you might have to work with to make these changes. But what you can do now is if we click on this, you can save this specific style here. So we have this porch So I clicked on porch and it pulls up a porch style. And everything that we just changed here, if we want that to be the default porch style, we can just say save porch style. And that will save all those settings as the porch. So that next time you open up a porch and go to input a porch, it's going to use those settings that we put in here with the ceiling turned on and all these things. Or you can also save it as a new style. So if I click on save as a new style, I could maybe call this a finish truss porch. And it will search for other ones that you already have. But if you click off to the side here, it'll expose this, and I can say okay. And once I say okay, this is now a style. All these things we just saved here is a new style that's available. If I click back on porch, it's going to go back to the defaults that we had previously with the porch. No ceiling, but if I go back and switch to this finished truss porch down at the bottom of our list, then it's going to use these new settings that I put in. So that is on the list now. That is a new style. So you'll notice there's this drop-down list. So even though I clicked on porch, when I clicked on that wall, it used porch as the default, but you can click on this list and you can pull this down and you can pick anything you want from this list. And so now that finished truss porch is an option that we could switch to. And now that I've clicked on that, and that's what's in the style, any changes that I make here, if I want to save that to the finished truss porch style, then I would click on this button. And once I click that, it just saves that, anything we would change here. Or we could save a whole new one. If we put in rafters, we could switch over to rafters here. And we could change up things that made sense for rafters, or we could do, an unfinished truss porch maybe. You just click on save as a new style and you can save a different style. You can save as many of those as you want. So as you can see, this is pretty powerful. You can turn on all these different settings. And this is going to be the same set of settings for all the porches. So you might have some things turned on that you only use for truss porches and some things you only use for rafters. You will need to have both of those in here. But you can set things to none and turn certain things on and save those as different styles. You can also come into this configure style, which allows you to do things like you can rename something if you want to change this from finished truss porch to something else. You could come in here and rename that. You can delete things, and you can also move things around on this list. So if you want that at the top, we can move that to the top and hit save. And now that's going to just be at the top of the list. So you can come in and do some configuration of those. You can reset your default styles. If you click on this, it's going to tell you this is going to reset all of your styles. And it's going to go back to the original defaults. These are going to be what you guys are used to seeing right now. It's going to reset those, completely reset those back. All of your styles. It's going to get rid of anything that we put in here. I'm going to say no. Any like this finished truss porch is going to go away. You're going to go back to these 4 original ones with the original settings. So that's something to be really careful with. If you hit that reset, it really is going to reset those defaults. You're probably better off going into configure styles and just deleting things and moving things around if you want to. So be careful there. The last part underneath here is this copy to builders. So if you are a supplier or like a parent distributor database, you can make these changes and do all the things that we just were looking at. And then you can copy all those to the builders. When you click that, any builders who, and this is also going to be based on like the framing rule permissions, any builders who can't edit their framing rules are going to get all the changes you just made. If the builder is kind of independent on their own, if they're child controlled, I think we call it, if they sort of control their own framing rules, then they can set up their own and they won't be reset by anything that gets copied to builders. So it's going to follow that same pattern as the framing rules. So if you're an administrator with builders, it's going to be that same pattern. Hopefully that makes sense. We can go into that a little bit more in detail here in a second. So a couple other things that I wanted to make sure to point out. There is a note here that says, pick an existing building to copy its properties. When you're at this stage here, you don't necessarily have to use a style at all. You can just change any of these and hit apply, and it's going to, whatever you set in here, it's just going to apply those. It doesn't have to be a style. Even if you're under a style, if you make changes and hit apply, it's going to apply whatever changes you have in here. But the other kind of cool feature is if you have an existing porch with stuff that you want for this side, like we want the same thing on both sides, you can click on this existing porch and it's just going to use those same settings. Like you might have noticed it changed that ceiling height to 9 foot. So all the settings from this porch, it's applied these over here. And so even though I have a style, we could change to another style, and it's going to change all these settings again. But at this point, it's using those settings I just clicked on. And if we like those, we can hit apply. So finally, I will hit apply, and it will actually apply this porch to that wall that we clicked on. And so now these two porches here match exactly, except they're on the different side of the building. One other little trick, or one thing I wanted to just point out, because it is a bit of a change as well, actually, is I'm still underneath this porch command. And so I can still click on a wall. And so the one thing that we kind of lost here is to be able to do a wraparound porch. So before we have those quick buttons where, we had the different parts that you could click on the different wall, and that was actually confusing for a lot of people. But to do a wraparound porch now, you do have to input 2 separate porches, but it's pretty easy because we can match these settings with this porch. I just clicked on that porch, and now these are going to line up. And so since that's full length, and it's all the same height and everything's the same here. If these meet at the corner, so that's 0, and that was full length all the way to the end, and that's going to be the same thing over here. So we should get a wraparound on both sides now. So now we get those wraparound porches on both sides. Pretty easy though. You should be able to just match the properties of one porch that you put in. And as long as that's starting at 0 and this one's ending at the very end of the wall, however you do that, you should be able to get those wraparound porches still pretty easy, even though we don't have that button anymore that you can just automatically click on those. Okay. I think that might be everything there for the input of those. Might think of a couple other things here, but I did want to point out these new parts that we put in. One of those is going to be, and I'm going to get out of this. If you hit escape, it'll take you out of that. Just FYI, I was still in that input method. I hit escape, and now I'm not, so I don't have to worry about that. Selecting walls. So one of those pieces of trim that we put in is beam wrap to soffit. That's a new piece of trim, and that is going to come into play like on this front wall of this porch where I have beam wrap set up here. That was something that was part of our settings that we looked at there. And there are no panels on this front part of this porch. It just runs, this beam wrap runs right into the soffit. If you have, I had just a J channel piece set for that beam wrap to soffit trim. If you have a piece of trim in there and your beam wrap runs into your soffit with no wall type panels in between, you're going to automatically get this beam wrap trim if it's not set to none, or beam wrap to soffit trim. So there is a piece coming in right there, and we'll go look at some drawings here in a second. New piece of trim. If if it doesn't meet up, that piece of trim is not going to be placed, even if you have a material is part of that trim. It's going to give you that typical like top of eave wall, open wall trim that we have now. But so if you have a panel, it's going to give you what you typically get with the beam wrapped a panel. But if it's right up to that soffit, you're going to get this new piece of trim. The other place here where we have a new piece of trim was the ceiling to wall trim. And so that is going to come in here anywhere where a ceiling meets a wall. So that is going to be actually all around here. And a little bit easier, if we go into the drawings here, we go into the ceiling layout. And we go into just like this ceiling here. And if we look at the interior ceiling, there's the ceiling to wall trim. So that is going to be oriented to this porch here up against this wall, so that this is like we're looking at this from inside the building right now. And so this new ceiling to wall trim is going to come in where this ceiling runs into that main building wall in this case. Though this would also apply to any sort of like a porch on an attached building. You'll notice that we also have this eave ceiling to wall trim. This is existing right now. You get this in this case. With this new ceiling to wall, this is an additional part here, right at the same connection. But this is like, this lower one is kind of picking up the ceiling to the wall up above. And this is below.Maybe this is just picking up the wall. I think a lot of times people will use a single part here, like with the F and J, to pick these up. If you ever wanted to use two separate parts here, you now have the ability to use two different trim parts. Is basically what that gets at. If this will come in as set to none, this new ceiling to wall, and you're not going to see this if you don't use it. You're not going to see this. It's going to be the same as it was before. If you do want to use this, you'll have to go in there and set a material in there and set that up. And this is an important thing here, and what demonstrates something that I mentioned earlier is this ceiling to wall trim was set up as part of this porch. So this is coming in because on that porch, I selected a trim material for that and it wasn't set to none. These same pieces of trim are going to be on your main building settings as well. So underneath these details, if we scroll down here, this is going to be part of the ceiling trim for the ceiling to wall. And you'll notice this is set to none for the main building. So inside of here, I also have some liner and some ceiling and wall liners. And there's not any ceiling to wall trim here. If you want that to be there, you can come in here and set that to J channel. And because I have the ceiling to wall trim in my porch settings, these are completely independent, right? That's what I mentioned earlier. These aren't going to affect each other. So you don't have to use this ceiling to wall trim on the inside of the building, on your main building, but you can use it on part of your porch. If you do put in like an attached gable type building, because we could put in a typical attached gable building as well, that attached building is going to have a separate ceiling to wall trim as well. So something you'll have to kind of watch. If you're putting in a separate building here, in my case, because I have ceiling to wall as part of my attached building in my porch settings, you're going to have to either set that to none or apply that separately from your main building settings. And that's going to be true of all these types of settings. So that is going to be a change, or something to watch for. Okay. I think that might be everything that I wanted to cover with you guys. So yeah, Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tyler did have a question back around the styles of whenever you're putting in styles for attached buildings. He,
Mhm.
he asked, let me get this question. Sorry. Styles of attached buildings will have the same advanced framing style options. You can't select different options or selections for different styles. And I believe you can. I mean, it's just you have to turn on those options for your whatever style you have. So if you go in there and you want stud frame and your main building's post frame, I think that's what you're asking, Tyler. You can go ahead and unmute if you want to join the discussion.
Yeah, so I mean the framing style, you would have to go into the framing rules and you'd have to turn that on. For it to go up.
I more so
Yeah,
meant, will the fields be the same for every style of building? I get that you can change the selections within the field, but you can't do different fields per style of building, correct?
That's
correct.
Yeah.
The fields that you show in the settings, like
Yeah.
Sean showed at the beginning, there is one checkbox that says show this in the advanced.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that, Tyler, is that there is no such thing as a porch. A porch is just an attached building style that has open walls and whatever other settings you want, and it happens to be called porch. But there isn't anything special about a porch or a lean-to or an awning or anything else that you want to add. You know,
Like for
we have a-
example, with awning, you do still have beam wrap in here. And that was the same for this other porch. If you don't want that for your awning, you would have, if you don't want beam wrap on your awning, you have to come in and put that at none.
Yep.
And then you can save that as your awning style. And then it stays.
you can't, yeah, but you can't have no beam wrap trim question for your awnings.
Right. You can't hide
Okay.
that. That is another point, is that these will follow the same if they're hidden or not hidden in the framing rules, because you can hide different questions. And there's advanced where some people can see some of these questions and some people may not see all these questions. That is going to reflect in here as well. Just something to keep in mind. If you don't have permission to see some of these settings, some users will not see those in here as well.
And then second question real quick, if I may, on when you save that style, can you save the non-advanced selections? Like, can you save a certain pitch for that style? Or those all
He's up here.
Yeah, can you save those per style as well?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the alignment from left, from right, width, length, height,
So like if you wanted
roof style.
full as your default for porch, yep, you can just, if you change that to full and you hit save, that's now, that's the default.
So theoretically, you could have a style that says full length lean to 212 pitch or something like that, right?
You could, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You get pretty detailed, and we'll probably make it easier to kind of organize some of these. But for now, you're going to have a list. This is going to be as long as you want, and you do have to get kind of specific with the name of these if you want to get into that kind of detail. But yeah, you can do that. Yep.
That's nice. That's going to save a lot of time.
Yeah.
Good.
The other thing that I don't think Sean really touched on, but if you, Sean, if you can, on this porch right here, change this to from left 10 feet.
Change it to
No, full, but from left. Change the from left to 10 feet.
Oh, gotcha.
And then apply. Oh, it won't because there's a building already there. So you need to edit that one. Yeah, you're creating a new one. Edit that one and make it from left 10 feet. No, still full, but from left. No, still full, but from left 10 feet.
There we go.
There we go. You can always do this, right? Go ahead and apply. But now is where you get to the fun part, because when you go to the other side, and select the other porch and make that from right 10 feet. This is something that was really hard to do with the old way of doing things, right? You had to go, all right, so instead of starting at the left, even from left 10 feet, I had to go from left 10 feet, but then make the length 30 feet. We had to play all those calculation games to change all those things. Go ahead and apply it.
So, but I'm seeing my preview here. It's running me all the way to the end.
Yeah, because you're doing right. No, make it full from right 10.
Oh my gosh, I'm feeling stupid. Oh, but now I kept my other side.
Yeah, make it from left 0.
0.
Yeah.
From right 10. Hey, there.
Yeah. All right.
There we go.
And that's where the preview really is handy. So go ahead and apply that.
Yep.
So that's much easier. The other thing that is much nicer, in my opinion, and I hope
it takes a little.
I don't know how often this comes up, but
a little getting used to. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it is different.
It's a little bit.
Go to your main building now, and go to the main building and change it from a 30 by 40, make it a 40 by 50. And then watch what happens. While we're waiting for that to refresh, Star Home Design said, do the styles carry over between jobs? Or are they specific to each job? They're not specific to the job. You are saving these settings. Think of it as you're changing the framing rules.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I did want to point that out. Yeah, when you come in here, I'll just say a little bit more about this. And when you come into this mode here where you're saving these things, that is not just for this job. And when you apply and you place this porch, that is for this job. But yeah, any of these configuration kind of things, this is all across the board. Those are going to say for every job. So yeah, that's a great question.
Okay. Another thing while you're in there, because you didn't touch on this, go ahead and click on that wall to add a porch. You'll notice that the apply button is grayed out.
Yeah.
And the reason it's grayed out is because if you put a porch in there, it would interfere with a porch that's already there. So if you change that to, go to alignment left and make it 0 and 8.
0.
Yep. And 8. You can put it there. Now the apply button is available. But if you made it 0 and 12,
so yeah,
it grays out. So and turns red instead of yellow. So that's what's going on there as you're trying to do it. In the old way, if you tried to click on a wall, it would say, no, you can't put it there. There's already one there.
Yeah, good feedback.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on.
Yeah. So, but you notice when we changed the size of that building, it just magically left everything working correctly. The porch across the back there is still full length because we said 0 and 0. These other porches, they start at 0 and they go full length. I could also, if I go ahead and edit that one, yeah. If you change this to, so the other thing I want to touch on too is this behavior here. If you change this from full to left or right, it's going to say, oh, well, that porch is from right 0 with a length of 40.
So 0 from the right side here, and it's coming across 40.
If you change it to left, then it's going to be from left 10 feet with a length of 40.
10 and 40. Mm-hmm.
And if you change it back to full, it's going to be from length 10 and from right 0. And if you change it to center,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to give you from left 5 with a length of 40. So once you have a porch in there, changing the alignment won't change where the porch is placed. It's just going to change how you measure those things.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully the intent, Tyler says, that's a lot nicer to make adjustments. That's what we were aiming for,
Yeah.
is to make it easier to make those kinds of adjustments on the fly. And this is a little subtlety that sort of is us trying to read your minds. So anything as you're using this, if there's something that just feels a little bit backwards or frustrating, feel free to bring it up, reach out to support and just say, hey, this is, I keep tripping over this, because we do want to make this as easy as possible for you guys to use. Let's see. We're kind of drifting into Q&A. Sean, did you cover all the features you wanted to cover?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay. So Mike Petra had a question. Will the permacolumn assembly automatically take off, say, 5 foot or 7 foot from the post length? So you got your permacolumns in here,
Mm-hmm.
I believe.
Yes.
And
the answer is
if you look at the post, it is taking off whatever that distance is on the bottom of that post.
Yeah. I think I have these at 5 foot.
It should be 5 foot permacolumns, and then those 13 posts are 14 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the 19 feet they would be if they were full length.
Right.
So those are 15 foot 10 posts and then a 5 foot permacolumn at the bottom.
Yep.
Does that make sense, Mike? All right, cool. Delmar asked, can we get these settings for Windows?
Which
I
setting?
lost track of what we were talking about. Yeah, so left, right, center, full.
Mm-hmm.
What settings are you talking about there, Delmar? And you can unmute yourself if you want.
I like the way the porch settings work, and sometimes when you're doing a print, windows can be hard to figure out as far as where they need to be placed. Once you get it all figured out, they change the size of the building on you, and at that point all your windows move. And so the way the porch stayed put would be nice in Windows as well.
Okay, so the windows will do the same thing. If you notice that the door that's on the end of this building, we changed the width of the building. But if you click on that door, that is from center minus 5 feet. That if you change that to from left, let's see here.
So I probably had that from center 0. It kept the door in the same place when we changed the size.
It shouldn't have. It should have kept it from center 0, because you said from center 0. So
Right.
what the way this is supposed to work, Delmar, is, and if it isn't, we need to fix it. But if you put this door in from left 10 feet, then it's always going to be from left 10 feet, no matter what you do with the size of the building. If you put it in from right 10 feet, then it should stay 10 feet from the right end of that wall, no matter what you change the size of the building to. And if you said from center 0, then it should stay in that location as you change the size of the building. That's how it's supposed to work. And that works for some windows. The problem is there's a lot of different ways you can put windows in, right? That if you have windows that are, you know, one is 5 feet from the left, the next one is 10 feet from the left, the next one is 15 feet from the left. Then as you change the length of the building, those should stay the same place. If you then had some windows that were 15 feet from the right, 10 feet from the right, and 5 feet from the right, those should stay where they are as you change the size of the building. What we don't have is a way to put in windows spaced evenly, right? Which I think is kind of the use case for that. I think it's probably worth looking at a couple of use cases, Delmar, to just say, look, when I put these in and then I changed the size of the building, it did this. I wish it would have done that. And I'd love to look at some of those examples, because we try and make things up in our heads as we're planning this stuff out. And that's based on, in this case, it's based on stuff we've seen people do. And so it makes sense. So Megan says that's not how doors and windows work. That's what's being requested. It keeps the door relative to the access plane of the building, not the location. So what you're saying, Megan, is what Delmar reported, I think, and what we just saw here is it doesn't matter how you put it in. When you change the size of the building, it keeps it there. So it's almost like it converts it to from left and then leaves it there. Okay, so it sounds like the consensus is everyone would prefer that if I put in this door and if I put this in as from right 5 feet, then change the size of the building, it should change it to be, or should keep it 5 feet from the right. It sounds like that's not what's happening. Go ahead and edit that one, would you, Sean? And let's just see if you make it from right. Right now, from right 19 feet. So change that to from right 9 feet. Just so we have a little bit more wiggle room, and then update. And then we're going to change the width of the building from 40 feet to 30 feet. So that is from right 9 feet. So that should still be from right 9 feet when we're done. So go ahead and change the 30. Yeah, change the 40 to 30. Okay, I apologize, Megan and Delmar. I thought it was working that way. So
I gotta say, Margaret, they've never worked that way. They've never been dynamic. Whenever you change the size of the building, we actually have it. We've talked about it, and just in case, the reason why, remember, is if somebody just mistakenly changes the size of the building, it would have moved all their openings, and we wanted to keep them there. So it's been that way since forever. So
okay.
I think you might have had some.
I'm hardly ever wrong, but
yeah,
apparently
I think
it can happen.
But no, we've had plenty of conversations about it, so I totally get. I had to go through.
Let's get that captured. So
Yeah,
Star brought up another issue, and I apologize. We're kind of rushing a little bit here, but I know it was asked a while ago. Maybe I missed it. Has there been any change on being able to print out the plans to scale on different size sheets of paper? No, but it is on the list. So we are going to be looking for that. So the idea is you would want to be able to, So what you'd have to do is be able to say, I want an output and specify the paper size in the output. And then specify the scale, or have the program automatically figure out which of the common architectural scales would fit. it needs a lot of discussion about it in order to be able to do it, but we certainly can do that. We just need to figure out what it is that we need to do to read your mind about it. But the basic idea is, look, I want to be able to print it out on a C-size sheet of paper and have it be to 1/4 inch equals 1 foot scale kind of thing. Michael says, also heard that we'll be able to do 2-story designs with stairs in the next update. Yeah, Bluebeam software can do similar things. Is that a response to Michael Royden? Yeah, it looks like
That's
it.
on the scaling part. Yeah,
Oh,
until
on the scaling
we
part,
have
okay.
a solution, yeah, it may be able to help to use that software until we have a better.
Yeah, so there is an option for that. 2-story designs with stairs, probably not the next update, but it is coming. That is one of our goals for this year, is to be able to do that. There's actually some bigger things with 2-story design, we think, and that includes things like, boy, it sure would be nice if when I get a wall layout, it doesn't put all my walls on the same layout. So being able to get a first floor wall layout and a second floor wall layout is something we will need to be able to solve. Stairs is, as you can imagine, has the potential to grow lots of hairs. And Randall Gifford asked for platform framing, and that would be good. And then the inclusion of stairs with the rise run limits for treads, and with the limits on headspace, and with the limits on automatically calculating. Yeah, there's a lot to be done with stairs just for the stairs themselves. And then, as we all know, you can't without a railing, and railings is a whole nother application in and of itself. So we are going to be making steps in that direction for stairs and for second floors, and sort of along with second floor goes platform framing, because that's, unless you're doing actual pole barns for your 2-story, your second floor is going to be platform framing when you're doing stud frame. It's just how people frame that, and it's really hard to get a 30-foot 2x4 that's straight. So yeah, those are all good questions, and it's great to see that those are still as important as we thought they were, because we are looking at getting those scheduled in for hopefully sometime this year.
Yeah,
And I only say that.
those have been delayed a bit, unfortunately, because of the complexity, and also because
Oh, sure.
of some other things that we had to do in the software, but
Mhm.
those are definitely still high priority.
Yeah, and it's good to hear from the users that they're
Yeah.
high priority for them too. So
Mhm.
it just reinforces our belief of what we should work on next. Yeah. So Sean, I know you had to jump off shortly here, so
Yeah, I got a few more minutes. I mean, Mark, you could pull up this model if you wanted to, if people have specific
yeah.
model.
A little bit of a deck design tool, a possibility. It is a possibility. It's probably way behind
That's my
all this
cue.
other stuff. Yeah, we can. Thanks, Sean. We can kind of do that. You can kind of get close with decks. Where decks really get hairy is when you start talking about railings. And so railings, stairs, decks, they all get pretty interrelated. And I'm thinking that decks is another area that would be nice to be able to address. And then stairs, obviously, stairs with decks. So we can kind of do decks, because you can do a loft and you can do the the joists, and you can do the end joist and the side joists for your stringers, and then what we can't do is the beams underneath the deck. So it's hairy, but you can kind of get close, even down to the level of doing a material takeoff where you just say, look, I've got the 2x6 pressure treated deck lumber that is actually 6 inches wide. That way you get the right number because it gives you a 1/2 inch gap between them. But yeah, decks, probably before deck framing is going to come the ability to support timber trusses. I know people have asked for that, including just this morning, somebody asked about it.
I'm back, guys, by the way. What
All
was
right, Sean.
timber framing?
Timber trusses.
Timber trusses.
Timber trusses is another one that we think is really important to you guys, and we do have queued up to work on this year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of exciting stuff that we want to be working on and getting into your hands, because we want to continue to be the best tool out there.
All right. Anything else?
I have one more question yet. On interior sheeting, is it a possibility that you can do where you want to start interior sheeting from, let's say, 10 feet from the left, start interior sheeting?
Not yet, but that is something that we are looking at being able to support. And the way we would do that would be like, let's say if you were to go in and put a room in here, a couple of walls, interior walls in this building. Yeah, go in interior walls, add a room. Then you would be able to, with support that we're looking at for things called rooms, you would be able to go in and say, okay, in this room, this little room that you just created here, I don't want any sheathing, but the rest of this floor is a different room, and I want sheathing, interior sheathing on that. So then you could have your interior sheathing wouldn't start until it got to INT 1. So that first 10 feet wouldn't have any interior sheathing, and then the rest of it would. Even to the point where you could just put in a wall that isn't really a wall. It's just there to divide a room.
Right. Yeah, this is actually coming up sooner than later. This is kind of next on the list, actually. So that one we are working on, and it's going to be part of, Mark called rooms. So that one is actually kind of first on the list, even before the timber trusses and before the stairs and platform framing. Doing these rooms, and that also includes the ability to kind of set up a fake room, but it allows you to define that in this portion there is no liner, but then it starts here.
Yeah, so you could put a wall across the entire building and say to the left of the wall there's no liner, to the right of the wall there's liner. You could also put a fake wall in, a dividing wall, a divider line is what we call it. It basically says, look, to the left of the divider line there's no liner, to the right of it there is. Or to the left of it there's liner but it's green, and to the right of it the liner is pink. Whatever.
Right.
So that's the general idea, is to give you that kind of, yeah, using a different material per room, different slab depth, different material. One of the things that that we know we're going to have to address is a different ceiling profile. Yeah, so ceiling, whether or not you have ceiling liner, you would be able to control per room. Ceiling liner in this room, no ceiling liner in that room. But to be able to say things like this room has a scissor truss and this room is not, is a flat ceiling, that we can't do just yet. We're struggling with how that would work, because you can see if you have a lot of rooms in here and every other room's got a different ceiling, then all of a sudden the bottom chord of your truss is jumping all over the place, and that just, it doesn't fit with how we do the truss table. So
Yeah, those are some of the
I'll
details.
have to burn that. Yeah, but certainly different slab depth, presence of slab, all of those things could be different on one side of that foundation and on the other.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, all right. So we will be showing that off in a future webinar. In the meantime,
Yeah, that's it. A couple, I think that 2 releases from now, I can say with some confidence. Not the next one, but the one after that.
I can say after this release, we will be back to releasing on Wednesday nights, and so you'll have new versions on Thursday. So I can say with confidence that that functionality will show up on a Thursday.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Which
So yeah, again, this release was very, very different. There was a significant change, as Sean alluded to at the beginning. We had to rip out the whole foundation and replace it with a new one. And that's why we're doing this release over a weekend and shutting the site down. There's a lot of construction going on to get this thing set up and working under the new foundation. But once we do that, future releases will be back to our normal schedule of, hey, we're going to release on Wednesday night and there's a new version on Thursday. So keep your eye out for the next webinar invitation, and we'll get on with it. Eric Hall asked, would an option to edit an individual truss or even a post be an easy way to do that? Yeah, this is a problem because
Yeah.
the posts don't exist. That post right there, there is no post there. There's posts in this wall that are spaced at this spacing, but there is no post there. And so it gets a little bit hairy being able to edit an individual post or an individual truss. And that really wouldn't help the scenario that I was alluding to, because this dividing that he has here, you could easily say on the back side of that wall, there's scissor trusses, and on the front side of the wall, they're flat, or vice versa. Or even on the back side of the wall, it's trusses, and on the front side, it's rafters. We could allow you to do that. It's when you put in a couple of rooms, you got a kitchen over here, and next to that is a pantry, and then there's a dining room. And in the dining room, there's a cathedral ceiling, and in the kitchen, it's a flat ceiling that winds up with a single truss that goes flat and then goes up and drops back down again. And that is what we wouldn't be able to without a significant change to how we do trusses. But allowing you to change the ceiling, the roof framing, if you will, allow you to change the roof framing on a room by room basis will work as long as the room is full length, the full width of the building. So we could do that. But initially we're concentrating on the stuff that can change on a building on a room by room basis. So it's primarily the the ceiling liner, wall liner, and floor. Okay.
And that could be none.
Could be none. Yes, could be none. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that just doesn't make sense. In this room is post frame and that room is stud frame. Well, the rooms are right next to each other, so that wall between them, is that a stud frame post frame wall? Anyway, all right. Thanks everybody for showing up. As always, we appreciate the feedback we get from you guys, and we really like when you guys say how cool the software is. So please don't be shy about saying that. But also, we like to hear that, hey, it'd be even cooler if it did this, because those are the things that drive the improvements we can put in the software, and improving the software is what causes you guys to tell us how great the software is. So it's a win-win for everybody.
All right, going once, going twice. Last chance. All righty, thanks everybody.